So the last video that I made, I was basically just talking about hair color. Um, about 24 hours after making that video, the following day, um, my oldest son was hospitalized. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I want other people out there that are having similar problems with family members to feel like they're not alone. Because having a family member or you yourself have to experience mental issues is a horrible thing to go through, and I do not wish it on anybody. Now, as far as I can remember, I don't think I've ever really spoken about my oldest son. Um, I did speak about ADHD, autism awareness, on one of my videos, and I spoke about his story, his backstory. So if you want to know what's wrong with him or why, I have a whole entire video that is in my videos that you can go back and watch. My son will be 7 years old next May. Um, and in the past year, we have had 3 incidences where he has had suicidal ideation. Now, I am going to say this before I go any further in this video. If you're triggered by suicide or triggered by the word or anything like that, or do not like talking about that, then I would recommend clicking out of this video and watching somebody else, because this video is going to be talking about it, as well as talking about mental health issues. So my son has been having mental health issues since he was 3 years old. That's when I noticed that he was having mental health issues. It's kind of hard to see that before that age because they're toddlers and you know they're babies. You can't really tell if a baby's having a mental health issue. You just think it's just a regular baby toddler thing. When he hit about 3.5 is when I started to notice that he wasn't your typical 3-year-old. He, and the thing and the reason why I say that is because I do have a 9.5-year-old daughter, so he's not my first. Again, I have a whole entire video that's called My Daughter's Story. It's below in the video, so feel free to watch it. She, I have a whole entire other child, so I am aware, and I do know what the ages of, 0 all the way up until about 10 years old are like. My 3-year-old right now is gonna probably try to interrupt. Oh, he's gonna go to the bathroom. So I do know what certain ages are, certain milestones, certain ages look like. When my oldest son hit 3, I started to notice that his speech was very low. But I didn't think much of it because I just figured that, all kids are different, and, all kids he would reach speech or he would start talking when he was ready. Then I started to notice aggression. I started to notice that he was very aggressive towards things and people. He would break, go downstairs, Logan. I'll be back. I'll be down there in a minute. Go play with Daddy. I would notice that he wasn't like that. Now he's 3 years old. I just told him go downstairs and go be with your daddy. Now, if my oldest son, when he was 3 years old, he did that, that wouldn't have happened. He would have pounded his way into this room by either throwing himself against the door, or he would have beat his fists practically until they were red just to get in here. Those are the kind of things that I started to notice. Now, I do understand that toddlers do have their days. They do have their days where they're just crabby and it's the terrible 3s or the terrible 2s and they go through it. But this was something that was abnormal with him because it was an every single day thing. It wasn't just one day it was really bad with him and then we'd be fine. No, it was every single day. He did the same thing, and it was always the same attitude every single day and the same reactions. His appetite started to dwindle. He barely ate. Um, he stopped napping. He was only 2.5 years old when he stopped napping. He just stopped. His sleeping habits became very poor. He was waking up multiple times in the middle of the night. And when he would wake up in the middle of the night, it wasn't just waking up. He was screaming bloody murder. It was death screams, and it scared the living daylights out of our whole entire family. We actually had a friend that was living with us for a while, and he woke up. He was living in our basement, and he heard it, and it like scared the crap out of him. But he was aware of it because he knew that our son had mental health issues as well as he went through those things when he was little, so it didn't bother him. Um, but yeah, he started doing that. He started having night terrors, but they were like every single night. I could clock them when he was gonna have it. He started to get very impulsive. His impulsivity was to the max. There was a moment where we almost lost him. He would have died tragically in front of us. It was on a very busy road. He was at a hair salon, and he just didn't want to go back into his car seat and get in the car, and he bolted for the freeway. Um, Luckily, fortunately, thank God alone, my husband was quick and very fast, and he grabbed him just in the nick of time before a car almost killed him and my husband. Um, the whole entire experience for that was traumatic for everybody involved. It was very traumatic. These were the kind of things that I was starting to realize, and I was starting, and like I said, it wasn't just once in a while like a typical toddler does. It was an everyday occurrence. He was getting more dangerous, and he was getting more impulsive, more aggressive, and more violent. Um, he was only 3 years old. By the time he reached 4.5 years old, he was failing in school. He wasn't doing well in preschool. He had no friends. He ended up getting multiple letters sent home from preschool. He also started to suffer when it came to his potty training. He would just defecate in his room. He knew how to use the toilet. He wasn't wearing pull ups anymore. And he would eat it. He started to eat his own feces. 4.5 years old, not normal. Um, he started to urinate on himself on purpose. He would do it out of anger. He would be in his car seat or at a playground or wherever we're at, and if things weren't going his way, he would just urinate. Um, when he hit kindergarten, when he turned 5.5 years old, that was probably one of the worst school years of his little life. He was constantly suspended. He was constantly kicked out of school. My phone is glitching so bad right now because the lighting's crazy. He was constantly suspended. Um, he didn't get a lot of education in kindergarten. He basically wasn't hardly ever in class. I fought for an IEP, which is an individualized education plan for him. It's basically special ed. I fought and fought and fought basically all year long to get that for him. Um, the school that he went to at that time was very, very stubborn. They were also very arrogant and very ignorant to his mental disability. Um, they made it very hard on us to even get him the proper educational help that he needed. So it wasn't all his fault when it came to how poor his kindergarten year was. It was I'm gonna blame the school. By the end of his kindergarten year, I didn't think he was going to go on to first grade. I thought he was going to get held back, but he didn't. He ended up getting passed. Now, this is when he started getting more violent. It wasn't more or less that he wasn't defecating, he wasn't eating it anymore. He stopped well, no, he just stopped that, but he stopped defecating and eating it. He wasn't, the eating habits picked up. But at this time, my son was also on three different medications just to keep him stabilized. The medications were doing the best that they could, but they weren't working. Um, he started having delusional thoughts. He was saying things that weren't making any sense. He also was very, very, like I said, very violent towards me and his father and his brother. He attempted to kill his brother. He got caught on a security camera because we have a security camera that's like installed in our son's room. They were sleeping together at one point. That didn't work out. He ended up wrapping his hands around his younger brother's throat. He tried choking him out, so we quickly, of course, ran in there and stopped it. He started, and this was the year when he turned 5. This was the year when he started talking about, and now I'm going to say it, suicide. He started talking about killing himself. Most of the time, he said that he was going to do it with a knife. He also would say that the other thing that he started doing is self harming himself. He would take his fists and he would roll them up. He would punch him in the side of his. I can't even like imagine doing that to the side of my head right here because this is the soft part of your head. It's just sensitive right here, and punching yourself in the head and being hit here at all, it hurts like really bad. But he would literally take his whole entire fist and he would punch himself in the head here, here, in the back of his head. Then he started taking his fists and he would hit his thighs and he would just drive them into his thighs as hard as he could or in his sides of his hips. Anywhere he could to punch himself, he would punch himself. If he wasn't hurting himself and he couldn't hurt himself, he started to attack us. He started coming after his dad, and then he turned and he started coming after me. Basically, it got to a point where we were basically defending ourselves every single day. Now, my oldest son, is tall. He's very tall. He's almost 5 feet. I'm only 5'4", so he comes about right here on me. And he's getting pretty strong. He's actually, the boy never stops eating. Now he doesn't. Now that he's going on 7 years old, he never stops eating. He's very bulky now, and he's tough. He's very strong. So when he was coming at me, it was to a point where I had almost like half my weight coming at me, and it was that with anger and rage, and it was very hard for me to defend myself against him. I've gotten hit, I've gotten punched, I've had things thrown at me, I've been knocked against things. It's pure hell. The sad part of it is that it's my son. It's hard because I'm watching my little boy and he is, for lack of better words, losing his mind in front of me, and there's no way that I can, being a parent with a child that has that kind of problem, you can feel completely helpless because you don't. It's not like having a boo boo on their leg or they get sick and they have a fever. We can automatically take care of that. This is something that is inside of here that I have no access to. I can't help him, and I tried for 6.5 years to help my oldest son through these disabilities. I did the therapy. I did the psychiatric help. I did the occupational therapy. I did the medications. I did the even home stuff where I would do, if I felt that he was having a bad day, we would take a lot of walks or we would do things like that. None of these things were working. Nothing was working at all. I wasn't getting through to him. What really cut the ties for me is, and what made me start to turn, was when he said that he wanted my husband, which is his father, to kill me. Now I started to get nervous for my own welfare, as well as now I'm starting to get concerned for my 3-year-old and my husband. Um, we have to go to bed. We have to go to sleep, and that would start to bother me because I'm thinking, you can see where I'm going with this. So now it's just getting uncomfortable in my house. It's just, we're not feeling comfortable anymore. We're not feeling safe. And and we're not feeling safe for him that he can harm himself because we don't know what he's thinking during the day. We didn't know exactly what he was feeling because if he's talking about suicide during the day, just because he says he's okay and he goes to bed, doesn't mean that he's not going to try to pull something in the middle of the night. There have been children that have killed themselves at very young ages. There's been funerals all over the United States for children ages 5 to 10 that killed themselves. There was a very tragic story that I read of I think he was 9 or 10 years old, and because of bullying at school, he came home and he hung himself off of his bunk bed. His father walked in and saw him, and it was too late, and he had killed himself. This is a real thing, and this is something that children actually do. You don't really think of it. You don't think that, why would a kid want to kill themselves? What kind of problems do they have? They have problems that we don't even know about. And it's worse when a child has a mental disability. It's way worse. Finally, he was at school. He's going to a new school this year. I transferred him out of the old school, and thank God for this new school because I don't know what I would do without this new one that he's going to. They're the ones, and they advocated to get him into a mental hospital to get him help. And so he ended up having an incident in school. It was a minor, petty incident, but it escalated when he said, because of this incident that happened, he wanted to kill himself. And he went into full description of how he was going to do it. When, um, and this would have been the fourth incident that we've had this past year of him doing this. So me and the school and my husband had enough. So as of yesterday, my son was hospitalized. He is going to be staying in this mental hospital probably for the next 2 weeks. It's been really hard on my family. It's only been one day, and we're all kind of not. It's not normal for us to not have him here. I have to say that's probably the worst part of it is just the separation of being away from him. Again, me as a mom, not being able to be there, not being able to help him, not being able to monitor him, and seeing what they're doing, to be able to speak for him. He still does struggle with speech, so it's hard. He talks. He talks very well, but sometimes he doesn't always say things correctly, and he doesn't always get his sentences out right, or he'll struggle sometimes with what he's trying to say. And then he gets upset and cries because he can't get he doesn't know how to express what he's saying. He's getting better, but he still struggles. So that's been kind of a worry for me. I've been having a hard time with letting them, take care of my kid. I'm documenting this because I want other parents out there that are possibly going through this, that have had gone through this, that you're not the only one. And it is a very common occurrence. Unfortunately, in the past couple of years, it's been more common amongst young kids, for them to end up in mental facilities. We're on the nurse. We were talking to the nurse today, and she said that just this past year they have seen a increase in pediatric patients in their ward. And she said it's the most saddest thing she's ever seen, that they have more pediatric patients in the mental hospital than they do adults. And it's heartbreaking. This generation of children are being exposed to so many things and so many problems and issues that we weren't exposed to. My generation, we didn't have these kind of things. We didn't have cell phones, and we did have cell phones, but we didn't have, when we were 6 or 7 years old, at that time, we didn't have cell phones, that we played on. The only thing that we had was like video games and, Nintendo 64 and, Sega Genesis and things like that. But we had like we had regular home routines where, you play your video games, but yet you still went outside and played with your friends, and you still hung out with your friends, and you had a social life and things like that. And the issues that are in this world nowadays are not the issues that we had back then. Yes, we had war, and we had war in Iraq, and we had, the World Trade Centers and things like that, and we had, at one point, we had a meningitis epidemic here in Michigan. We had things like that, but we didn't have COVID-19. We didn't have, a pandemic. I don't know why I did this, but it wasn't a pandemic. We didn't have a pandemic. We didn't have, we did a lot of the things that they have nowadays. We didn't have back then. And I think that these children are being exposed to things that are really messing with their mental stability. And I think, honestly, the year of 2020, when all the schools shut down and they ended up taking a year off, and it was just like insane. Um, I think that's another reason why my son suffered as much as he has suffered, is, and his mental problems suffered, is from being home and not being around teachers and students, and his routine was broken. So I want to let other parents out there know that have kids that have mental health issues. It's not your fault. It's definitely not your fault. We cannot predict when we have a child, when we give birth. We don't know what kind of personality they're going to have. We don't know what kind of mind they're going to have. We do the best that we can at raising them, and it doesn't really technically matter what we try to do. Whatever they think and however they feel is however they're going to think and however they're going to feel. All we can do, because it's their personality, all we can do is be there for them 100% and help them through their issues and problems that they may have. And I have learned to not blame myself anymore, because I know in my heart and in my mind that I have, for the past 6 years, done more for my oldest son than I've done for myself. I have done everything for my son. I have done, I have gone beyond trying to help him. And this is just another stepping stone in helping him. So, anyways, I just wanted to document this so I can look back and hopefully a year from now, I won't have these issues, and he'll be home, and things will be better. Hopefully. But if you are watching this video and you do have these issues, you are definitely not alone. You're not. Be sorry, guys.